This gameplay demo is brought to you by Audible. All right, everybody, it's me, Adam Sessler. We're about to play through a game I've been eagerly anticipating, and that is Broken Age from Double Fine. And to help play the game, we have, well, Anthony Carboni.
Oh, hi.
But more exciting, Tim Schafer.
Much more exciting.
Of Double Fine. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And Greg Rice. I don't even know what your title is over at Double
I was a
Fine.
producer on Broken Age.
Well, congratulations
And I
on
think
the
you're very
production.
excited.
I will at least concede I've already played through it. I enjoyed it quite thoroughly, so we're going to use this opportunity to talk about the game while we're playing it, and to entice other people to engage in the Broken Age experience. Now, this is part one of what is going to be two parts. I don't know. Obviously, it is the beginning of the game, but is there anything you want to sort of set up in terms of what how people should read it, or have their expectations?
It's an adventure game, a point-and-click graphic adventure, which I haven't done in a long time.
You haven't done it since you started Double Fine.
I mean, the point-and-click one, the last one I did was Full Throttle, which was 95.
But even
You don't consider Grim Fandango to be a point-and-click?
It's not. It's a graphic adventure for sure, but it's not a point-and-click.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
even as a lead designer for Double Fine, though, it's been 5 years.
Well, Happy Action Theater was actually one that was mine, but the last time I did like a narrative full-on was Brutal Legend.
Wow. And this is the game that came from the Kickstarter.
Yes, the Double Fine adventure.
And I remember being in Vegas with you when the Kickstarter was happening, and that sense of like, hold on, this might be changing how we make video games around here.
Yes, that kind of, this is interesting, isn't it? Feeling.
I mean, how has been that adventure since what was it, 2 years ago? I think. To now.
It's been crazy. I mean, the greatest thing about it is that it's just opened up the relationship between us and our backers. Because we've just met so many of them now in person, and they feel so differently, I think, about the games because they're now participating in them. They backed it, they helped make it happen, and their voices are heard on our forums, and we're talking back and forth about this game the whole time it's been in production. So they've seen the early concept art, and they've contributed ideas for locations in the game, and I think it's just built this, our community has just gotten so intense, and in a good way.
No, and I'm curious exactly which environments they may have inspired, since this game has some very inspired environments in it. Do you want to go ahead and start it up, Greg?
Sure.
Just a real important question from the chat before we get started. Adam, could you please just sniff Tim and let the chat know what Tim smells like?
All right.
I recommend my forearms. It's always been my best smelling feature.
Yeah?
Smells a little bit of like wisdom and elderberries.
Do you rub them in a lot of magazines? Which is the sample cards?
Okay, so here, I think that's the other thing. This game has two parallel stories.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's about a boy and a girl, about 14 years old, who are living these incredibly different but related lives. They have certain things they're both up against or common to each other and to that age in general.
I mean, yeah, they seem to have lives that are preordained, and they're trying to sort of give themselves some existential prerogative, as it were.
Yeah, he's all by himself on a giant spaceship being taken care of by these loving arms that kind of like attend to his every need and entertain him and feed him, but he feels kind of trapped, and he longs for real adventure in the world, and he takes it on himself to like hack into the ship's controls and take over the ship. And she, Vela, has been chosen for a great honor in her town, which is to be eaten by the monster Mog Chothra in order to save her village from being destroyed. And she starts to question that, and why don't we just kick him in the nose and run? Let's play.
Now, before we start, the one thing I was curious about is, how do you kind of see people playing it? Do they play one story all the way through and then play the next one? Or do they, because you can go back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, the way I envisioned it was like when you're playing Day of the Tentacle, you switch back and forth between the characters. Sometimes because you have to in that one, but in this one it's more that if you get stuck on a puzzle, instead of giving up or putting the controller, the mouse down and walking away from it, you could just switch to the other character and bounce back and forth. And then you tend to your brain works in the background solving puzzles, and then when you come back to the other character, you suddenly know how to solve their puzzle.
That was a good idea. It actually helped me a couple of times in the course of playing this. All right, well, let's start up. Anthony, we're going to do the boy in space.
Good. I haven't played any Vela yet, so I didn't want anything spoiled for me.
Okay, good. He's on a spaceship.
Rise and shine, son.
Yeah, I'm trying not to spoil anything for him, but he.
I'm almost off duty.
This is his kind of parental units on this orb that talk to him,
and they're very, very protective.
The main mission of the entire ship is to keep him safe, which was very very easy when he was a baby.
No more snoozies for my little spaceman this morning.
And there's a great Jennifer Hale talking to
And
him.
of course, the voice of Shay, as we're going to find out, is Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, yes, big adventure game player.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I think years ago I saw in Entertainment Weekly that his favorite video game was Monkey Island, Secret of Monkey Island, and I was like, that's interesting. I'm going to store that away for many, many years, and then.
And I would assume in that interview that was years after Monkey Island came out.
Yeah,
So
that was like-
that kind of points out a fairly sincere answer.
That was like 2000. Yeah.
Wow.
Studio, we have some people in the chat saying that the audio has a slight buzz. If you guys could try to, thank you.
Was that my cell
We're
phone?
working on that,
Is that my
guys.
cell phone?
So these arms, these hands, I was confused with them at first until I realized they're all knitted. Please explain.
The mom, on the ship is just really into knitting, and I'm trying to think. Sometimes ideas come from being planned
No
deep
way,
out
no
in
way.
the story.
Go through it.
Yikes. No way.
I love this part.
As possible. This is where I wrote a bunch of dialogue thinking it'd be kind of throwaway, and then the artist put all this work into actually making each and every cover. I didn't even think we'd have actual covers, but the Nebulums, I think Galactic Slime might be my favorite, or Honey Holograms look pretty good.
Soylent Dreams, that's mine.
Yeah, I
No, not in that kind of mood today.
Crispy bunches
You gotta
of
make these real
space.
cereals.
Yeah, I'm sure that won't be a
I was
problem.
thinking that. Also, I have to ask you these questions now that you're here. In your imagination, where are they being purchased? Is there an interplanetary supermarket? that they
Everything is
stop in?
made by the ship
Yeah.
itself.
Take that
That's why if
away.
you notice, as they're poured out, they all look pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
good in this case, because this looks like he's having some sort of medical issue,
Don't take this personally.
bleeding all over, like there's bird blood falling on the cereal.
Also, that's fairly consistent with actual cereals.
Gross.
You don't want bird
when
blood
you're
on
a
them?
kid, you keep on getting that new box, thinking that might be the flavor difference, and somehow
really
it's
just a
very
different-
reminiscent of everything else.
And a different colored dye.
Galactic slime.
People are asking a lot about
want
the
that?
art style and how you guys came up with the
Allergic to
look.
that, aren't I?
Well, at the very beginning, when I was thinking about doing an adventure game again, one of the things that I missed was that a great artist like
Seriously?
Nathan Stapley,
Are you
who
trying to
was
make me unplug you, computer?
one of the artists we worked with for years. I was in Psychonauts. They could paint something and it could be used in the game. Peter Chan could paint a background for Day of the Tentacle, and it's just that asset is in the game. And as we went into more complicated games in 3D, those kind of artists, their work had to go through a lot of other iterations, become a 3D model, get textured and painted, and then the shaders and all these things. So that connection was kind of broken between the artist and the final product. And if you have great artists all in between, that works out great. But I wanted to do something again where those artists could be, painting again and experience something in 2D, not just a graphic adventure, but like a 2D graphic adventure. So we started that, and then when the Kickstarter blew up, and we said, we have to. This calls for a greater scope, a bigger scope. It became more complicated, and we became more, this idea of all the different parallax and layers and the animation on these more complicated models. But it still looks like, I think, a Nathan painting, and plus with the work of our art director Lee Petty, who kind of makes it all actually look good and function together. It's a whole team of
It's
artists.
got this wonderful sort of soft quality to it, where even something like Maniac Mansion, those colors are quite vibrant. And I mean, this really has that storybook, I'm thinking the old Bill Peet books I would get from the library, where there really is that sense. Everyone says hand drawn, but there's something more there. It's that kind of warm feeling that comes off the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely the team worked on having a color script for the game, of having every location should flow, and the color itself should tell a story. And if they were here, they could explain probably technically in much greater detail exactly the choices they made to make it. But you can see how they worked to make it look like a juvenile setting here. He's on a spaceship command deck supposedly, but they're all just squeaky toys and really harmless controls.
Yeah, I think anyone who was a young child in the 70s can look at just this entire thing and see things that are quite familiar.
I love how psychotically happy the spoon is to be used as a spoon. I just love the abject joy in serving Shay that everything on this
Do you
ship
mind if we go
has.
to the avalanche victims? This had me laughing out loud so hard.
That spoon is funny because I never would have planned in the beginning that spoon was going to become possibly my favorite character in the end. By the time we were done recording the voice and everything, I was like, I really just want to do a whole game about that spoon.
Spin-off?
DLC.
Spoon off. Here are the yarn pals.
Avalanche?
It's worse than it looks.
Really? How?
That little look at each other, I think, came in later. That's all.
There's something almost borderline psychotic about their enthusiasm. That is as funny and as sweet as it is. There's almost an underlying sense of like unhinged malevolence.
Well, I can't imagine how they feel because they've been putting on this show for Shay for 14 years. They might have a little bit of resentment too.
So do you see his age as being like 14, 15, 16?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, you are a parent.
I am a parent.
I couldn't help but wonder if there was almost like sort of some commentary on, I have quite a few friends with young children, and there's a very reasonable and expected kind of like, you want to protect the kid. And, if this in any way was a response to sort of what you've learned raising your child.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder which is more had more of an impact because I either being a child or having a child, because I know what it's like to, of course, care for something that you want to keep incredibly safe all the time. But there's also that feeling of your relationship with your parents and how, growing up, they're kind of these, perfect, kind of like parenting machines, and then you get older and you're like, oh, I was kind of a jerk
Do the
to
train
them.
mission.
Yeah,
like,
I've had those moments.
Like no matter how, nice your parents are to you, you have this urge when you're like 14 or 15 to be like, I'm going to sneak out of the house and I'm going to just do all
You
this
can't
stuff.
tell me what to do. I'm my own person.
And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And here's the incredibly deadly train, runaway train, obviously based on the film Runaway Train.
Of course, the John Voight classic.
And Kurosawa scripted. I think you
that's
can
right,
see
it was
that. You can
Kurosawa.
see that in here.
Yeah.
I think we cut the scene where he was standing on the train as it went off into the snow.
This bit really made me feel, I think the first time my parents put me in one of those trains on a mall or at Disneyland, like I was super excited, then you sit in it and you're just like, oh, this is moving slower than I can walk.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the pony rides at Tilden Park in Berkeley.
This actually probably is more inspired by Traintown in Sonoma, where I grew up, which is like the 5th largest scale model railway in the country. I went there every year for my birthday and actually still love it. I'm trying to convince my daughter, like, you want to go there for your birthday? Because I want to go there. I am not sick of it even as much as Shay is.
Was there a train ride at the Nut Tree?
And the Nut Tree had a train that would go around.
I remember doing that.
The place where you stop on the way up to Tahoe because
exactly. I think they were like there was the Nut Tree and a prison was in that town.
Vacaville?
Vacaville, there we go.
My grandpa worked at that state prison. Oh, it's a long story.
Look at that. Oh, it's Northern
it all
California
ties back
talk
into,
here.
yeah. Pretty soon we'll be singing Denevi camera commercials.
So in the course of making this, did you, obviously you had to draw upon your experience working at something like Maniac Mansion and other adventures. In the interim with Psychonauts, with Brutal Legend, were you able to sort of bring experiences working on a more diverse roster of game genres back to this?
Yeah, it's hard. That's interesting. Like how much impact did the other games we made have on this? I mean, I feel like it was really returning to adventure games, because actually a lot of people at Double Fine had never made adventure games, and I had to be kind of like, well, let me tell you, this is it's going to be tough because adventure games are not like an action game where you maybe make a verb set for your main character and then you use that and leverage that in different ways all through the game. In adventure games, a lot of things are just every moment is like handcrafted. Every time you use an object on another object, it's been anticipated and so it's there are a lot of work. And what was I talking about? Yeah, starting to reminisce about how hard they are.
Well, also, if you look at sort of where you think the interests are in game design, it's like it has to be open, multiple choices, these wide areas to explore. I mean, the adventure game, by its very nature, is the antithesis of that. I mean, was that a point of concern that we're returning to something that would probably violate the principles in the marketing offices of many a big publisher?
Well, not in this case, because we're Kickstarter funded, and we're Kickstarter funded by people who like adventure games. So when I had choices like, should we have puzzles in the game? Because that was an initial thing that I was kind of researching, like, what has happened in adventure games? And if you look at some modern games that are narrative-based, some of them gotten rid of puzzles altogether, and they just want to have a flow of like you experiencing a story interactively. And I decided like, no, it should have puzzles, and also it's okay to have dialogue trees. Like we don't have to change all these things because the people who funded it, they're okay with that stuff. You know what I mean?
That's
Whereas
gotta feel so good.
it is a nice feeling to have because a lot of times we're making adventure games, we always want them to, we got to make them sell more because they weren't selling a lot, and we need to add action sequences, or we need to add 3D, or we need to add something to hook people. And this time I felt like I was making an adventure game for people who actually liked adventure games.
Now, puzzles, that is always, I think, the tricky part, because you really can't progress the story unless you solve the puzzle, and puzzles can sometimes be tricky. That the logic will resonate with some players, and with others, they're just flummoxed. I mean, you've had a lot of experience trying to handle that. Is there any alchemy to it?
There's no right solution. Like, we've had people play this game and they finish it really quick and they're like, that was way too easy. And I have people tweeting at me they can't get out of Bella's living room. Like, they just don't know how to solve the first puzzle in the game. And it's really hard to make to balance the game for every single player. So we tried to remove the game ending ones that happened. And a lot of our old ones before we didn't really see them being played with people. Like all the adventure games, if I ever talk to anybody and they say, oh, I played Grim Fandango or Full Throttle, but I didn't finish it, I know exactly they got stuck on the signpost or the junkyard. Like, there's these certain puzzles that that 80% of the people just got stuck on. And we play tested this game and found the ones that were like nobody could get through at all. And so I think made the game as enjoyable by the most number of people we could possibly do it. I think it shows when you play it that it has a flow to it, and you don't feel like punching the screen as much.
Somebody in the chat wanted to know if this was a direct thing that you were setting out to do. It seems like a lot of the things that Shay is supposed to be doing are standard video game shooter hero things. that have sort of been turned into that are sort of like patting you on the head. Good
Saving
job,
people
buddy.
from an
You're a man.
avalanche? I don't think I've ever done that in a game.
I was trying to capture that feeling of being stuck in this routine. It's very inspired by a web game called Every Day the Same Dream, if you've ever played that.
Yes.
Which I love the way that routine was played out in that, and it made you feel like you were stuck in a routine, but there are these things you could do to kind of bust out of by doing the wrong thing, And so I was really inspired by that, and I think that's a fine line, to make someone feel like they're caught in a boring routine but have it still be entertaining. It's kind of those two things are kind of opposed, Yeah.
I think small knit people is really what the answer is.
They solve most problems. Little knit people that some people think look like.
So are these actual
not
people's
people.
voices that are highly modified, or
Some of them are not that modified at all. A lot
Okay,
of voice
that's
actors.
terrifying.
A lot of voice actors can do can do that high pitched voice just like that. It's just crazy. So it's a
The hug
mix.
attack reveal is so good.
You guys want to switch over?
yeah?
Otherwise,
Anthony,
we're gonna,
can you survive a little bit of Bella?
we won't go very far.
Okay.
Just close your
Okay.
eyes.
I will. I'll keep my eyes closed to this whole thing.
We won't solve any puzzles.
Talking about
We don't
Every
have
Day
to
the
solve any
Same
puzzles,
Dream and some of the stuff that kind of inspires you during your creative process. A lot of people want to know what stuff you play, what stuff you listen to, what stuff you watch. Like what goes in before stuff comes out.
That's interesting. I mean, a lot of stuff. I really believe it's when you think you're out of ideas, then you start playing other games and reading a book or a really good movie will just make you all of a sudden be taking all these notes because you firstly have a ton of ideas. And it's not like you want to imitate those games, but it just makes other thoughts happen in your brain, And so let's see. Like lately, I've been playing I've been playing Link Between Worlds, and also the new Mario 3D World. A lot of that, and Needhog, as it's pronounced.
Gosh, yes.
Needhog.
Yes, Needhog.
Needhog.
We got clarification on that last week.
Yeah. I happen to have a Nordic reference book in my office. I could look it up. It's Needhog.
Really? It's just sitting there, just in case?
Yeah, it's the book I read before it's talking about inspiration, before I wrote the backstory for Brutal Legend. Because
that makes sense,
Norse
yeah.
mythology and all those crazy stories. Sometimes you think that older stories get more and more, they would somehow become more conservative or something like that as they got older, but the crazier, the older you go, the crazier the stories are. We're like,
The original version of Red Riding Hood, you would not tell your kids.
I know. Yeah.
Set this up.
What's that?
You want to set up Bella?
Oh, this is Vela. So she's just been. We're talking about inspiration. Like I really love the beginning of Kiki's Delivery Service, where Kiki is sitting on the hill by herself. So I think that was very inspirational to this, where Vela wakes up and she's thinking about, instead of Kiki, who's going to leave town. Bella's thinking about her last day on Earth, as she's about to be eaten by a monster, and this is her little sister Rocky. And everyone in town is not horrified that she's going to be eaten. They're all kind of like excited because it's a great honor to be chosen for this festival. A little bit like the lottery that Shirley Jackson.
Yeah.
I can't cite that reference without totally spoiling that story, though. So I just ruined the lottery for a lot of people. So
I think most people have that imposed on them in high school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
I was gonna
okay.
say, or you save some people like 3 hours of homework.
yeah,
So there's a silver lining.
yeah.
It's interesting that you brought up Link Between Worlds because I feel like, just like you were talking about how you didn't want to put in some things that could be too frustrating or too many dead ends. I felt like Link Between Worlds is doing that too, where it's changing and opening up Zelda. Are you finding that like lately you're thinking more about keeping flow going than keeping challenge going? How do you balance that?
And that's like this interesting tension that you always have because the entertainment in solving a puzzle is that weird space where you don't know the answer, but you feel like you could figure it out if you just thought about it a little bit more. And then if you go too far with that, there's that place where you're just like, I have tried every single thing, and I can't even imagine where this thing is. You know? So you never want people to go into that little gully of just anger and anger. But you want people to keep playing your game. You want people to stay in your fantasy world. And sometimes when a puzzle is too hard, they will leave the fantasy world for that reason. Like they'll be like this, they'll start double, second guessing the people who made the game. Like, what would they be thinking about when they?
Yeah.
And so, we're trying to avoid the rage quit, but also not tell them the solution before they want it. And that's tricky. That's really hard to tune for everybody.
Yeah. Somebody was asking, Kevin Park asked, kind of related to this. Is there a formula? Is there a Tim Schafer formula of red herrings to puzzle solutions? Like when you sit down and you're figuring out a puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, I think there actually definitely is. In that, I think the failed solution attempts are really a part of like the whole data set of a puzzle. It sounds really nerdy, but like there's, you got to have a few elements to make a puzzle good, which is like a clear goal. Like I really want to get over the ravine because there's a big chest of gold over there, and then a clear problem, like there's a big ravine that I'll die if I fall into, and then there's got to be a 3 or so really false solutions. Like there's a ladder right next to the ravine, so you can lay that down and it totally breaks and falls in there. But now you have a stick or something like that, and there's like a button that you push to make this thing. There's a few obvious things, but they don't work. But they kind of give you a little something that maybe if you take all these things and put them together, you can have a solution.
Cool.
There's a formula right there. So easy.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
all there is to it.
Yep. Plug that into your computer and you're done. Those are baguettes in her hair because it's a baking town. I mentioned it.
Yeah, I want to talk about it. So this is a baking town. That
Years
was
ago-
once a town of
Yes,
warriors.
It used to be called Steel Bunting, and it was a town of warriors. But then when the monster started coming, they would fight the monster, and there was bloodshed every year. And then they finally found out that if they actually just gave up some of their maidens, the monster would start attacking. And then they had no reason to have all these swords and stuff around, so they beat them into baking pans and started chefing.
Are you going to do a novelization of this? Because the backstory is as entertaining as the game itself.
Maybe. I think there's kind of I think a backstory is so important, but I also think it's important to only show a piece of it here and there, like slices of it. Because if you show the whole thing, like those, some people like the games where you find a book and then you read a book in the game and it tells the whole backstory, but I feel like part of the fun of the backstory is that if you see just a slice of it here and there, your brain fills in the rest of the details and it gets more vast.
There was something that Jeff Smith was saying in an interview where he was talking about Bone, where somebody came up to him and was like, oh yeah, Bone, and then when they were back in Boneville and he had his money bin, and it's like none of that stuff was ever in the book. But you kind of want people to fill out that mythology themselves.
Yeah,
right?
they'll probably make a more pleasing version for themselves than you could make for them.
I think it's also a credit to the games that you've made, where I've always found those worlds, like I just want other things because I just want to go back to that world. It's a fun, interesting kind of, I've always looked at games, it's kind of like going over to someone's house. And some people's houses are really nice. You want to hang out there, and other people's houses, they smell like socks. And you seem to always make these nice houses.
What? Thank you.
And that it's like, hey, I would love I don't know if I want to play, say, another Psychonauts game, but I would, somewhat. Oh, of course I do. But I want to access that world and just learn a little bit more, and help fill out that mythology, as Anthony was saying.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's the whole goal, I feel like, is to make a world that feels real.
Yeah.
You can have non-canon expanded universe novels.
What?
Broken Age Gaiden.
Yeah.
Side stories.
Like
The part I loved about
the
this-
Spoon books.
I would read Spoon Adventures.
Spoon Adventure number 1.
I think you should do the Spoon Adventures. I highly recommend this. I think you will do quite well with it. But what I love about this sequence is kind of unlike the Shay story, where from the get-go you're like, you can kind of see the humor. But I played Bella first, and it's so sweet and was so nice. And the father's like, oh, that woman. And I was like, what's going on? Because he was playing it straight for about a good 2 minutes before suddenly it's like, oh, okay, this is definitely a Double Fine game.
What moment was that exactly for you? When the
Right around here. I think it's when you realize that there's something called Mog Chothra. It's like, yeah, you usually don't get something that sounds like it's out of a Godzilla movie being referenced in something that's just really kind of all about saccharine and good times.
I'm gonna wonder how much fluidity is there once production starts? Like, you said that you didn't expect the Spoon to be as favorite a character for you until after you went through the first voice acting session. When something like that happens, I mean, I know there are a lot of teams working together, there are a lot of parts that have to come into play. If you catch something good like that, how much leeway is there to be like, oh, we got to expand this or we got to pull back on this?
I mean, definitely we try to accommodate what they can. I'm think of some examples. Can you think of examples of something we added more of to the game because people liked it? Well, Penn, yeah, that is.
Oh, you got Penn Ward.
We got Penn Ward, creator of Adventure Time, in it, and there was this character Gus, who was a very small kind of throwaway character, not throwaway character, but a smaller. He was more like a puzzle solution type character, and. At first, he was just going to be underground, under this cloud. I don't want to spoil that puzzle. But anyway, he was going to be added a dialogue so you could go talk to him. And then, you know, the original puzzle, you didn't have to go talk to him to solve the puzzle. But now there's this problem where in the game, you can solve the puzzle and not see Pan. We're like, oh, God, there's this problem now. Because Pan is like this, that's a really valuable character because Pan did such a great job with the voice. And he made him so funny. And
You even added some lines in this.
yeah, that's the thing. We added more lines for him, and the same with Harmony. Like we're like Harmony Lightbeard is Jack Black, and we're like he doesn't have enough lines. We just had to add, so we went and added a bunch more lines, and probably has more effect on Act 2. When we do Act 2, is like what people really responded to would probably be enhanced in the second act.
Now, obviously, this is so dialogue dependent that once you've recorded, are you kind of trapped with what you have, or is there some ability to go back in if you need to change something or you need to add something?
I mean, depending on the schedule, when it's there's a panic before the last recording session where we're like, oh my God. Sometimes I just write a whole bunch of lines that don't apply to anything in the game, and they're like, that hurts. Ow, don't do that. Like, lines that like, this might work somewhere, and so we try to anticipate that.
Their skirts are cracking me up.
Let's say no one appreciate this. They are made to look like cakes because this is a baking town.
Yes, and then I think this is definitely something that it was inspired by my life with a 5-year-old girl, my daughter, who is, for a while, she found out that you could, in her Googling for princesses on the internet, she could Google on YouTube, there's princess cake tutorials. And she would watch someone make a princess cake for hours. So that kind of ended up in this sequence in the game where all these princess cakes. Because the princess cake, you know, they'll make this cake and make it all round and stick a Barbie doll in it and then do this dress thing around it. So that's exactly what all these cakes are.
I mean, we really moved from the supermarket cake, which was kind of the mainstay of
The
most
sheet
birthday
cake, the
parties.
flat sheet cake?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I've never made one of these for her, but you can definitely acquire them.
I assume the requests are being made for one of these.
Well, now they have to have like all the different sizes. With the one's got to have candles on her hands.
Hey, I've got a plan.
But I think it did.
I love that she's just the only one that sees anything wrong with this.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if we work together, maybe we don't get eaten. Shh.
You're ruining it. You're gonna scare him away.
See, actually, to be honest, this entire sequence here is reminiscent of my years in television. Yeah, it's like something highly self-destructive that gives you a moment of fame.
Everyone's like, this is a great honor. What are you talking about?
Everyone should be on cable, but they're not. Look at you. You're so lucky.
Oh, this is Mog Chothra. Should we reveal the whole Mog Chothra? I guess we're going for it.
You want to go back to the future?
Well, we can't right now. We gotta see
No, we
Mog
can't.
Chothra.
So majestic.
We did add the drool to make that line a little bit more enhanced.
There you go.
Are you getting a puzzle solutions right now?
No.
Is someone like telling you what to take?
No, I'm getting instructions that we're hitting that time. We'll probably start wrapping it up with the reveal of Mog Chothra. We don't want to give away too much. But that is...
He's drawn to the flame like a giant
Were there some designs that were left on the table from Mark Jothra?
We went through a lot of drawings of Mark Jothra.
All right.
All the artists did an art jam, and we showed all different iterations of him.
Because this is kind of coming from like my way of reading Wrinkle in Time and what it was supposed to be.
Oh, man.
In that I just bought the book for a friend's son, and it brought back strong memories of it towards the end of it.
We made this thing a little more gruesome. We wanted to have the body fall be a little darker. Because everything is so jokey, and we're like, no, look, they're getting eaten.
They're getting eaten. I don't think I fully realized that's what was going to happen because everyone's trying to put such a positive spin on it that I was a little horrified when it finally got to
I really
that.
wanted to break through there. The inspiration I was showing the animators was the Queen News of the World album cover. You know, the robot is reaching in, it's got like the band bleeding in his hand, and one of them is like falling. Like that, it was like such a, saw that at a young age. It made a mark on me.
See, music. It's behind many a Double
Everything.
Fine game.
Queen is behind everything. The first Scott Adams Text Adventures always said, I'd like to thank the British band Queen.
Oh, really?
Yeah, strange. Strange tie-in to
See?
adventure games.
It all works that way. Well, Greg, Tim, thank you so much for coming by. The game is out as of today?
The 28th.
The 28th.
It's available for pre-order on Steam right now, and our backers are playing it right now, but it'll be playable by everybody on the 28th.
All right. Well, as I said, hopefully everyone out there saw this is fun. It's a return to a very classic game genre. I thoroughly enjoyed playing it. I really, really thank you guys for coming by and showing this off.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
I'm glad
absolutely.
you liked it, and I hope you and your fiance have a good time playing it later.
We will. She's
We
a
will.
huge Double Fine fan. So.
All right, guys. So there it is. Double Fine. You can go to their website, learn more about Broken Age, and the documentaries are out there as well, correct?
On our backer forums.
On your backer. All right. There you
Also, if you're confused as to why Adam and I are up and online this early in the morning, we're usually nursing hangovers. We will be back
Yes, we
at
will be
4
back.
p.m. to play Alan Wake. 4 p.m., 7
Yes,
p.m.
we're returning to the Alan
Eastern.
Wake. Remember, it's not just the Alan Wake of games. It is the Alan Wake of Alan Wake live streams.
Is it
That's
hard
tonight.
is it hard as a game designer to know that nothing can beat Alan Wake?
Wow.
That Alan Wake is the pinnacle
Yeah,
of an
we
art
decided at
form.
the beginning of this year that we were just going to declare Alan Wake the game of all time.
I'm glad I didn't know that before I came here.
Yeah.
If we-
We'll instruct you about that.
Yeah, once the cameras are up, I have some flashlights.
Yeah, so once again, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, Anthony and I will be returning to the Alan Wake. Please join us then both on Twitch and on YouTube. Once again, a thanks to our friends Tim and Greg for coming by from Double Fine. And with that, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible is the leading provider of downloadable audiobooks and spoken word entertainment with over 150,000 titles to choose from in basically every genre. You can download and listen on any iOS device, Android, Kindle, Fire, Windows Phone, basically anything with a screen and a headphone jack. Best of all, you can get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership, and you're supporting Rev3 Games just by signing up at audiblepodcast.com/Rev3Games.